I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I didn't have a weekly news wrap-up this week. I had just said everything I needed to say after the election. I was exhausted. But one of the people that I had on just before the election was a guy by the name of Cliff High. He does predictive linguistics on the internet. He actually searches, billions of words, tens of millions of words on the internet. And he has a website, Half Past Human. And one of the things he said to me just before the election was Trump was going to win by a landslide. And I think if you factor out all the voter fraud, he had 300 electoral college, he won by a wide margin. And then the other thing he said, and I thought this was very interesting, in his research it said Hillary's missing. Hillary was missing. And what happened on election night? Hillary was missing. John Podesta, her campaign manager, walked out and said, oh no, we're still counting the votes. And behind the scenes, she's calling Donald Trump conceding the race. So that was a total farce. She went missing. The next day she's in Las Vegas. And I just wanted to tell you that this was a very overt, very exacting, no gray area prediction that Cliff High made. Hillary was missing. And she was missing. And let's go ahead and bring on Cliff High. Cliff High, I want to start right there. The prediction, Trump wins. I guess you told me in the pre-interview that was easier because your predictive linguistics was taking it. But the Hillary was missing, I thought was very interesting. And I've never in my life seen a concession speech given by a campaign manager after a major election. And she's in the background calling on the phone. What do you make of the prediction Hillary is missing? She was missing.
She was indeed. The linguistics for that set were very good, and it's sort of good for the other parts of that set because we work with the idea that when some of the stuff shows up, it's more likely that the rest of it will as well.
And what do you think that means that Hillary was missing? I mean, what was the takeaway for that the predictive linguistics predicted she'd be missing, and sure enough she was. What do you suppose that means?
Searching for meaning is something else entirely. I can tell you what's connected to it linguistically,
okay.
But meaning is something we all have to derive internally.
Well, what do you think? Just give us
your
thumbnail. What do you think?
That there was a breakdown in a very delicate relationship among a lot of powerful parties that failed to deliver as promised, and the plan didn't work, and so now there was no real plan B. There never could be under the circumstances. We're in a situation where there can't be a plan B for the Federal Reserve, for instance. They have to go on a certain path. They're doomed. The same thing was true of the criminal organization that we called CGI. Any criminal gang, no matter where it is within the social order, progresses along a certain path, runs into opposition and dies. It always happens. It always will.
The Clinton Global Initiative, CGI.
Correct.
Yes,
sorry,
okay.
CGI.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
So these things are very predictable. The data sets were very interesting in predicting the missing component. That I thought that was actually, it could have been something as wry as Maxwell Smart missed it by that much, or I thought maybe it was missing in some other way. But it turned out to be very interesting. And then the further part of that is that the missing leads into confusion. And that's where we're at the moment, is this confusion, the confusion state.
I had said, and I did not talk to you, I just said, listen, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the Clinton Foundation is going to tumble, because there's no favors that can be given now for donating to that as a former assistant FBI director, James Kallstrom said it was a huge criminal conspiracy.
Correct.
And so that's done. And not only is she worthless, and this I want you to explain this a little more. This is what I said. Not only is she worthless, I think she's in jeopardy. I think she knows too much. And is this what you're talking about, the breakdown with big
Correct.
powers? So please explain what your thoughts are about the big powers. And she's freaking out, obviously, that no more cover, that she doesn't have any cover. Tell me what that means. I think she's in jeopardy. Do you think that?
Oh, I certainly do, because they're basically we need to put ourselves in a historical perspective. And so I like to put in analogies where I know that there's a good one with history. And we're very similar to the Venetian or the Florence in Italy with the time of the Medicis and their enemies and so on, where you have rival, very powerful, usually sort of cooperating, but not necessarily always, groups that all get together around a central goal and have been able to pursue towards that goal for a number of years. They intertwine as much as they can, so there's a knowledge of secrets that's shared, one criminal gang to another. They each know where some of the other guys' bodies are buried. And so now we're going to get to the cover your ass phase, right? Because as these things break up, everybody's going to be looking out for number one. And it's just a really interesting, it goes to the language actually, and it was very, very shocking to me because I had not anticipated this. I wasn't expecting it, but the language of defeat versus the language of victory. We have a very stark analysis of that can be made right at this moment, both on YouTube and across all the fora on the internet. And if you'll notice, a lot of the language of defeat coming out of the major cities is all basically me, 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 I'm very afraid, me, 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 I'm afraid of. And then when you analyze it, you see that, for instance, all the social justice warriors are afraid of the First Amendment. They're afraid of the populace having expressed its opinion and decided who it wants to rule. And they're afraid that somehow, because it's been input into their brain, not because they thought this, but because this thought was inserted into their brain, they think that instantly a vast army of rednecks is going to rise up, create concentration camps, and fling them into it for whatever their perceived difference is from the general populace. And
which, of course, is a total false narrative provided by the powers that be in the MSM.
Correct. And this is a propagandistic narrative that they're trying to make off of the Nazi images of the past, and which are all inculcated into our brains from all of the theater and entertainment from the 50s onward here in the Western world that nominally won that war. And you'll notice, for instance, that when I can't think of whether it was Madonna or the Lady Gaga personality was out stumping for Hillary, she wore all that Nazi regalia because they have to have these memes constantly brought up in order to do work the particular kind of mind control and entrainment. What's very interesting is you find that in that organization, look at the reaction. Okay, this was
the Democrats, the DNC. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
And when it was clear that they had lost, Hillary responded in the same way as the whole cadre of kids, immature, non-adults, schooled individuals that are out running around burning down things in the cities now with this me, me, me. Now, she was not saying me, 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 I'm paranoid because I think someone's going to come and get me and throw me into a concentration camp. She's got real good reason to think me, 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 they're going to throw me in jail for all my crimes. And, we see this in the emails with Podesta et al. Now, the information, the interesting part of this for me was that the opposite of that, the language of victory on the part of Trump. Go and look at all of the stuff on all of the statements. Go and look at all of the people on YouTube. You don't see, at least I have yet to run across it, I don't see vast quantities of gloating. I don't see a mirror of the language that is being put out in an opposite fashion as one might expect. I actually see another form of paranoia showing up in the language of victory. And a lot of that paranoia is now being expressed as, will they let Trump become president? So these people that have won, whose will has been expressed, are now paranoid because they understand how intricate the power structures are tied and juggled and so on. And these guys are paranoid, but their paranoia is not about me, me, me directly. They don't fear being put into concentration camps directly. They fear the consequences of their worldview coming apart as a result of the deep state, or this amorphous they that has ruled all of our lives, the power elites, rising up and deciding that they were going to express their will. And then there is the question of the military. In other words, so you'll notice that the language of defeat is about people being afraid of the populace, and language of victory is about people being afraid of the government and military. Very curious. Also, by the way, I need to note something just as historical perspective, all right? Just because it annoys the absolute crap out of me. And that is that one only needs to have some real schooling, right? Not even education, but real schooling to understand that Hitler, Mussolini, Ceausescu, Stalin, Lenin, Mao, almost anybody in the 20th century that was a dictator, that was a tyrant, came from the left. They were all socialists or communists. There was only one area of our planet that has ever produced right-wing dictators, and that's the Middle East, the Muslim world.
Got it. And I want to come back to Hillary quickly. And I want to just focus on her, because that's how we started this with her being gone. She was embarrassed and she was freaked out. I think she was probably having a meltdown. She had to leave New York City. Do you think she left New York City to go out to the Wynn Hotel to make her concession speech because she was afraid for her physical being?
That would be speculation. I would have no way of knowing that. I know that they are all expressing personal fear language within the text that has come out in all of the emails. I mean, these people are actually afraid of being personally hung, personally sent to jail, or personally executed for crimes. So that's a good supposition, but it's speculation.
And you're thinking that she is, at this point, I mean, after Donald Trump saying, I will appoint a special prosecutor. And because listen, I'm just a guy with a general studies degree who's been in the news media, but what she did was commit treason. Treason with her servers, people died. She knew it was she was collecting treasonous bribes, so she did one thing to do treason, so both are treason, and then she had the bribes come to her global charity for the Clinton Global Initiative. That's just racketeering, treason. I mean, it's just treason, fraud, criminal activity. I mean, it's unparalleled. It makes Watergate look like, as I've said this before, some kid on the playground sticking gum in another kid's hair. I mean.
Sure.
I mean, this is off the charts. You think she
tried?
She knows that she is in deep jeopardy when it comes to legality and going to prison. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not actually. You're saying that. My supposition is that may be dealing. Well, we're certainly dealing with mentally ill people at the whole level, all the way through there. So how much they actually apprehend, how much they actually understand of themselves, their own motivation, and so on. I have a lot of speculation. It's very small. These people are indeed psychopaths. Psychopaths don't understand their own motivation. So, for instance, they may feel fear at a particular level, and they lash out because they don't understand fear and they don't apprehend it as the fear emotion, and so they lash out, and that may have been the reaction. But beyond, I mean, it's really speculation at that level. I mean, we know that they're in a psychopath or sociopath bound. And they'll react certain ways, but I don't know that actually impacts their thinking or the plans.
Do you think
does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Do you think they're fearful of prosecution?
Certainly. I know that is true within the language that's coming out within the minion class. Okay, again,
the people that supported, when you say the minion class, the people that supported Hillary Clinton are saying, hey, don't throw me under the bus. I don't want to spend the next 15 years in a federal penitentiary because I helped you commit, fraud and bribery and treason and all this other stuff. That's the language you're saying that you're seeing in the minion class, the people that were her underlings, even Huma Abedin or Cheryl Mills or people like that, John Podesta.
And you'd have to see, there's the rub. All right, I know a whole lot, but when you start throwing names at me, I'm absolutely ignorant of popular culture and who does what where, because I don't usually.
But just the language in the minion class. It's just stay with that. The people under it. We're not naming names. You're saying that their words on the internet are showing that they are worried about prosecution. They're worried about crime they committed.
Okay, hang on a second. You have to understand how our stuff works. It's by set theory. They're worried. To say what worries them, we then have to go into detail levels, and that's where we start getting into something that can't be applied to individuals. Now, if we're applying it to the whole class, we know that they're very fearful. Then we can suppose that a number of them are just smart enough to understand that, I may be prosecuted. And then there may be some others who are just smart enough to understand, I may be killed for what I know, or there's another class that, I have to be killed because I stand in the way between X, Y getting to Z. So but all I get in the data is all these people have fear and worry.
And you would think it goes all the way to the top. Clinton is fearful and worried. For all the above things you just mentioned, she could be killed, she could be prosecuted, all that kind of thing.
Right. But there's the thing, you're dealing with psychopaths, all right? So look at it this way. Was Hitler ever fearful? I don't know. Do people in that kind of position? I personally think they have lost touch with reality, and so I'm unable to judge their mindset, nor do I care to, because it doesn't aid me. I don't mean to be an obstacle here, but
no, I got you. I want exactly what you think.
Okay, well, see, my thinking is that I go and I'm a guy that washes my own dishes. That's my own. I take my trash to the local landfill. So I cannot imagine anybody that works at such a level that they would commit the crimes, let alone how they would think of themselves afterwards. And I'm just quite sorry. I do get some indications in the data what their actions may be, but that's about as far as I ever go in my own thinking.
Okay, no problem. I want to talk about the stock market. A lot of people were worried. I was one of them. I thought, we did have a 800 point drop in the S&P, and then we had 100 points up the next day after we had closed up 100 points, which was a 900 point swing.
Sorry. What? It was much greater than that. Okay, it was 800 down.
Yep.
And 800 back up. That's 1,600 plus the additional one.
Oh, okay, all right. So in other words, we had a big point swing. Give us your analysis on what happened after election day. That right in itself was confusion. People thought it was going to sell off, ended up trading up. It went way down. It came way back up. It was crazy. Give us your assessment of what happened right after the election.
We're still in that period. Okay, the impetus towards confusion at the level of the stock market is still ongoing. Now, the confusion exists at a couple of levels. Those people that are outside watching the stock market do these 1,700 point swings, and then those people that are trying to manipulate those 1,700 point swings on a day-to-day basis as we go through these next 3 or 4 months, because they know that they're going to be in existence, plus they know the people that have to manipulate it know also that they're going to be facing days when it might be a 3,000 point swing, and they've got to come up with 3,000 points back up plus some just in order to maintain the status quo on it. And so that level of confusion is going to be operative all the way through until the clarity of our deflationary event in early February, sometime in 2017. So
let's stop right there. 2017 deflationary event. That means bonds are going to be destroyed. Debt's going to be destroyed. Is that what you're saying? I know prices go down after that for things you need, things you want.
No, it doesn't work that way. The bonds are being destroyed now in order that deflationary event will be manifest at that period of time. So we're going to be going through a number of months of bond destruction such that we can then in that period of time say, oh, we're in a deflationary event. All right. So because human language is very interesting. It's ambiguous at one level, but we attempt to apply precise time frames to it. So we're going to have a deflationary event, but that deflationary event is likely many months, if not years, in its totality, with some really interesting peaks and then long periods of flatlining, etc. So that deflationary event is ongoing by February. So I would suppose that what we're seeing in the bond markets as of instantly occurring as of the election is going to just start ratcheting on up to lead us into that period.
Well, just FYI to you, the 10-year Treasury shot up over 2%. I mean, went from 1.7 something, 1.8, over 2%, which is a huge move, which is means a lot of people in the bond market lost money. You're saying rates are going to continue to go up? Am I reading that right? Or
correct?
Okay.
We're facing the following situation. Okay, we can best think of it in a historical time frame and echo. If we look at what happened with Reagan's election and when he was brought into office, and then magnify it by the huge size of our population, the huge size of our debt, the internet communications nearly instantly, the fractured nature of our population, and the emotional nature of our mind-controlled civilization and everything, then you get an idea of what we're looking at, because those same forces that were intent on resolving themselves at the time that Reagan came in did not. They were stymied by won't go into it, but they were stymied. And at this point, we now have to resolve all of those same issues. All of those were brought on by what occurred with Nixon taking us off of the reasonably sound money of at least giving gold out to foreigners for the oil that we bought. So that all fell apart. Now we've got to go through that. And so that's what we're going to go through, both the confusion, the degradation of the bond market, the crumbling of everything else, the hyperinflation, and it's all magnified.
When you talk about hyperinflation, people think deflation. They think, oh, gold and silver are going to do terrible. But you're not saying that. You're saying that
Correct.
We're going to get this bizarro world. Oh, we're going to get deflation. I've said this before, and I could totally be wrong. But I suspect we'll get deflation and inflation at the same dang time. Is that
correct? That's my understanding as well.
Okay, explain to me.
In my definition of it, I call it deflation, but maybe we should really better define it as debt destruction and inflation, because the powers that be, the Federal Reserve, all these guys, in the data sets that I've got, are showing that they're really worried by very early January. Actually, they start becoming extremely worried by sometime around the 12th or so of December, and then it breaks out into the public, so to speak, in early January. Now, what they're worried about is the destruction of all of this debt by dollars pouring back into the U.S. in banks that are, and the debt is actually being paid off, so to speak, by all this money coming in back to the U.S. But it's not an increase of actual physical cash, it's a destruction of all the derivatives. And so they start getting into a mode where they recognize, oh, this is deflation as they would define it, I think. It's a very nebulous term, but it's debt destruction for sure. And so they try and get us to all take out more debt and become debt slaves again. And their approach to that is the hyperinflation. Now, there's also a component of the hyperinflation in that they can't destroy the repatriated dollars fast enough, so some of those do show up in the supply chain of digital costs that we have to deal with. It's a very complex scenario. You can say money, but then you have to really define it. What are you talking about? A gold swap for something? Are you talking about some form of digital currency or some form of paper currency? And it just goes on in terms of the complexity. So just to sort of get a handle on it, we're looking at a period of time where there will be a lot of things for which that you really can't sell because there won't be enough currency floating in your local economy for you to, for instance, have a meaningful garage sale, because your neighbors won't have enough extra currency to buy your stuff, nor would it be meaningful for them to buy it because they don't need it, and also it's now cheaper to buy it from a local store that's trying to get rid of it at any cost at all. Sort of makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And then after that period's over, then we're going to see the big inflation.
See, you were correct about the other part of it. At the same time that's going on, the cost of milk is going to go up, and the cost of gasoline is going to go up, even though there's going to be an oil glut, and it has to do with making the gasoline, the demand for it, and all these other issues. So you're sort of correct. As we have this deflationary event, the actual beginning of that hyperinflation that's going to touch you where you live is already going to be ongoing. So you will, at the time that you're able to say, oh, hey, we're Zimbabwe, or something like that, you'll be dealing with huge numbers, but you'll be able to see it starting long before then, because you'll be paying 40 cents more for milk this week than you did the week before.
Yeah, so your house price will crumble, but the milk price will skyrocket. The gasoline price will skyrocket.
Correct.
Then
as a result of that, as a result of those same forces, the banks will be put under huge pressure to come up with what they call capitalization, or capital. And in their world, capital has always meant assets that were basically someone else's debt. Now that's all got to change. The reason it's changing is because we were on a 30-year cycle of bonds going down to zero or real negative, and now those bonds have to go back up, so we now have to have real assets. So the real assets can't be someone else's debt, so they're going to have to be things that are not encumbered. And so the banks are going to be quite, in our data sets, are going to be quite fierce, very voracious about trying to capitalize themselves to stay in business. And again, there's another hidden layer.
Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you say capitalize, I've told this to a friend of mine, and tell me, I could be wrong, could be totally wrong. Just tell me what you think. I said, the banks are going to be on a tear to take back anything tangible. Your building, your house, your cars, anything that they can take back. They're going to try to take back so they can leverage that actual tangible asset. Is that right?
That's exactly what the data sets are showing, is that a tear is exactly the word. They're going to be frantic to do so because they've got some looming, and it doesn't show up in the data, some looming kind of a deadline or structure in their mind where they have to make certain capitalization by a certain time. So they're going to start foreclosing like mad, including times when legally they may not have had any real reason to. And this is going to start all kinds of problems through the population. At the same time, though,
This is also confusion.
correct.
People kicked out in the street will be confusing. This is just one of the components of
Correct.
confusion.
Correct. And also look at it this way. When the new administration comes in, you're facing an interesting situation. We have this rather unique position here of somebody who's outside the system. Now, is that someone going to come in like Reagan and bring in the heart of the system, as Reagan did with his vice president of George Bush Sr., who ex-CIA head, etc.? And so it was a smooth transition. Deep state took over, surrounded Reagan, and that was the end of it. Or are we going to face a situation where there's confusion at the top because the deep state is not able to put in all of their minions where they want, and so they got to deal with people that are hard-nosed and aren't going to take their crap. And so at the same time, these hard-nosed people have never run anything. They don't know who to grease in the deep state to get things done, so there's more confusion there. And so it just starts all piling up.
I wanted to come back to one of the things you were talking about with gold and silver going sky high. And in this time that we have inflation and deflation at the same time, what is going on with gold and silver? You know, Harry Dent, a nice guy, he's been right a lot. He was right since 2011, said gold was going to go down. But he thinks gold will take a chunk and just go straight down, and silver will be straight down. There'll be terrible assets to hold. What say you? And not against Harry Dent, but what are your feelings about that? Gold and silver, coinage, physical gold and silver.
Our money. So how can it be silly to hold money? If the value of the money is nominally going down against the currency, then that would nominally imply that there was more value in that paper. I cannot conceive such a situation when that paper is backed by the full faith, credit, and confusion of the U.S. government.
So I've said for a long time, and you'll get this immediately, and we've been told debt is money and debt is an asset. We're going to find out neither is true.
Correct. Well, we're in a situation where Americans have to face up to it. We've been deluded by a propaganda press that was attempting to support a particular viewpoint around the world. We tried to conquer the world with dollars and the threat of bullets, except for occasionally we had to get out there and do it with bullets. Now, I never signed on to this. A lot of my generation never signed on to this whole picture. But the upshot of this whole thing is the bottom line for us, the dollar in the wallet kind of issue, is that our dollars, our green pieces of paper, were accepted all around the planet, and people gave us real stuff for those green pieces of paper. They're not going to do that anymore. So if you want to get that coconut from Malaysia, or if you want to get a car from, out of the country, if you want to get anything into this country, and mostly we will try to just get food right away, you're going to have to pay something that has value, has meaning. And those little green pieces of paper will not after a short period of time. They'll have a lot of value internally for a while, but outside the country, a lot of people are going to say, no, I want to see gold, I want to see silver, I want to see oil, I want to see something that has a value.
Corn, wheat, I want to see you. Yeah, well,
correct,
I'll say
correct.
that you need to give me 5 tons of corn.
Correct. And so we'll go back to that kind of a situation. Now, bear in mind that everybody, there's also a connotation to this. And the connotation is that, we're going to go back into a primitive society, etc. But the most sophisticated trading society that ever existed was Russia prior to the 1917 revolution. And they had such a huge agriculture surplus that they had a commodities trading system that was staggering in its beauty, and they fed most of the planet in grains. Pure, un-GMO grains, by the way. And they did it from small farms. So, no, it does not mean a barter system does not necessarily mean you have to be primitive. All of this stuff can be extremely sophisticated and very, very profitable all the way around. So this is why I like the thinking of people like Catherine Austin Fitts, who say, not only can we get rid of the criminals, we can make everybody wealthy in the process, not only by getting their money back, by getting our money back from them, from all the deep state people that have thieved all this money, but by also re-engineering the model towards a human society kind of thing where we profit by being human and doing human things.
I got it. And the prices of gold and silver relative to the dollars out there, you've said some really high numbers. You're thinking that Jim Rickards has said gold's going to go 10,000 an ounce. Other people have said, Jim Sinclair has said 50,000, 60,000. But people hear those numbers, they go, what? Huh? What? 50,000 an ounce? Is that what is a crazy thinking and what is not crazy thinking? Explain how they're coming up with that.
I don't know how their determinations are, other than I've heard some of those for Rickards and for Jim Sinclair. My stuff doesn't really get a number. It's not like we can track a number through time. What I'm looking for, and get it occasionally inside the linguistic sets that we get, are prognostications about language that will show up. So I have language that says at some point in 2017, probably past mid-year, we're going to be looking at hyperinflation so bad that the Dow will be measured around $100,000 to $125,000, meaning the dollar will be so worth less that it takes 125,000 of them to buy whatever is the little basket that is the Dow. Now, at that same time, I also have language that say that at that same period, approaching, that will be a point where an ounce of gold will be approaching the Dow in terms of value. Now, this is not ludicrous. In the last depression, shortly after the bonds crashed in the 32, 33, and 34, after the shutting of the banks and all of this other financial engineering, we had a point where gold and the Dow were the same. And that relationship, gold dominated Dow for decades. So this is not a ludicrous idea. The ludicrous idea is that the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the federal government, has no reserves, and is not a bank, will be allowed to pour such a huge amount of excessive digits into our society that we must use that kind of number to value both an ounce of gold and the Dow. I personally would prefer that an ounce of gold cost $20, or it would be $50. Isn't it an ounce of gold on a...
Yes, the marking is $50. Ounce of silver is marked with $1 because everybody knows.
Correct.
And
I would prefer that was the way it was.
A gold eagle is marked with
$50.
$50. Yeah, but then a dollar would buy you, $2 would buy you a tank of gas or something.
Correct.
In that world. Okay, so
correct.
And that's back in the day. I mean, gold for the $20 gold piece was just shortly what do you call it? Just $20 even, right? But gold price was $20.67, and 67 cents was, gas was what, 10 cents a gallon. So that was
and you could almost make it yourself.
yeah. So that was the way that went. And I want to move on. I want to close with the press because the press. I've been saying long before you. I thought the polls. I worked in the mainstream press, CNN and ABC. And people asked me, I was on a radio show, Hagman and Hagman, says, well, are you embarrassed? I said, I wasn't embarrassed when I worked there. I was doing major stories. I was breaking stuff. They were paying me to go after the Pentagon for depleted uranium, for produce the note. That was at CNN. Right. Good Morning America, I was doing dangerous airbags and all kinds of stuff that would kill people. And hey, I held my head up, man. That I was not. But today, you look at what they're doing today with Lester Holt, who's just a propaganda stooge. All these reporters, quote unquote, not news, but they're doubling down on the fear mongering and now we're going to have the KKK ahead of the country, which is totally false. What do you think about the mainstream media? What are you getting back about the mainstream media? It just seems to me they're panicked. They got creamed. I mean, they were off. All the polls were off. All the mainstream media, the New York Times, the Washington Post. I mean, you name it. Oh, Hillary's going to win. She's going to win by a landslide. They were giving her a 90% chance, 95% chance. Yeah. I mean, all of them had gone on record saying, "Oh, it's over. She's going to win. She's done. She's the best president." What did somebody put out? Madam President on a magazine cover, of course. So, what do you think about the mainstream press? What are your thoughts? What are you getting back about the mainstream press? Are they going to get stronger because of this? Are they going to get more vicious? Are they going to die? What's going on?
Well, it's kind of like, let me also note, historical echo of Dewey. Dewey wins.
Yeah.
But no, the mainstream press is a propaganda vehicle now. They're owned by 6 corporations that have all of these individuals by the short hairs and that work for them. So they're basically mouthpieces to a criminal organization. Now, I don't. You were saying
that's powerful
they
right
feel
there, my
this way.
friend. Stop for a minute. Mouthpieces to criminal organization. Now, I've been saying they've been committing fraud. People are like, what? You think they're committing fraud? Oh, yeah. They say they're news organizations. They're committing fraud. They indeed are not. But go ahead. Your mouthpieces, could you explain that a little bit more? Mouthpieces to criminal organizations?
Well, it's on the face of it, it's quite obvious. They support and will always favor the military-industrial complex, the criminal establishment that's been in the leadership of this country since, way before the Bushes, that took over from Reagan with that push. when he was still the vice president. And then they tried to kill Reagan to make a smooth transition. It didn't quite work. They got Bush in the next time. Then they had to fob it off to the Clintons. But the Clinton-Bush gang has been in control for that many decades. So these people do not understand how to lose power and to get out gracefully. Their mouthpieces are going to reflect the turmoil that's going on within the organization as the lines of control and command are severed. And I think of it, it's really interesting from my viewpoint in looking at the language, and I look at the pressures and language that are appearing in the email releases. And it strikes me very similar to the last days of Hitler in the bunker. I mean, in terms of the communications that were going on between that command group that was losing control and then this command group. I think some of the people at the top actually understood what was going to happen, and they had a gut level feeling that their best efforts were not going to yield results. And they don't understand it, but they were nonetheless able to sort of pick it up. But the press. Let me stop for a second and talk about them as a group. The individuals within the press are in absolute turmoil. A lot of these people are as mind controlled as any of the other minions. A lot of them are controlled through other means, blackmail or
$1 million salary.
Correct, exactly. But nonetheless, they're all overtly controlled. The ones that were covertly controlled, that were too far down on the feed chain to get bribed directly by anybody in power, so they knew that they were being bribed directly by people in power, even though they may have suspected that extra junket was, to pay them off for the kind words, etc. They had no real proof, but nonetheless, they would tend to, go that way the next story and so on. But those guys are the ones that are expressing the most level of fear, and it's, I think, reflected from those people that are directly above them, who knew they were being bribed by those above, by the people in political power to obscure crimes. And these guys are going to be some of the first people that are going to be disappeared or suicided, because they represent a bouchon, or a blockage, a point where many different tunnels could potentially come together to someone who had obscured all of these different stories, right? And then these people are actually very weak, because they've already demonstrated they'll take money and betray their ethics. So will they turn? Will they be rabbited? Will they start talking? I suspect many of the people in the powers that be will suspect that, and our forecast in our data sets was for something of a banker suicide, only as we saw in the past a few years back, only it won't be bankers.
It'll be members of the press. You're saying, listen, they covered up obvious crime. I mean, Bob Woodward should give back his Pulitzer Prize. I mean, he did Watergate. And you can't see that she used private servers, multiple, which is treason. She took bribes to foreign countries, treason, and she took them in the form of donations to a global charity fraud, RICO, treason. I mean, treason, and that's not a story. The president of the United States had a private email account with an assumed name. That's not a headline.
Right.
And that's the kind of big strokes you're talking about. How the press lied by omission.
Correct, but see, from their viewpoint as well, they are not covering the America you live in, okay, or you think you live in. They're covering what they think was the burgeoning of a very complex, multi-elite, in that sense, multipolar, non-nation state world that we could think of as like the monarchies of the pharaohs, only spread across the entire globe, with the Western guys pretty much in control, battling it out maybe with the Chinese monarchies and then maybe with the minor Russian monarchies. That's really how the press viewed their position. Many of them felt they were like Machiavelli speaking to the prince, guiding them for their own personal growth through this very complex system. So in that sense, these individuals within the press that supported that power structure, they don't live in the same world that you do. And I think I don't want to be too castigating, but in my world, which is the martial arts, and which is also in your world here, there's a single word that defines that, and that's honor.
Yes, they had no honor. They lied, and people knew it. I have the saying that I say all the time: people know the truth when they hear it.
No, sorry, I'm not talking about anything so mundane as a lie, although they lied to themselves. Honor is something entirely different. Honor is the saying, I won't do that no matter what. I won't do that. So it's not honor is a very powerful, positive sort of an emotion within humans, rarely spoken of in our current society, lauded by ancient societies that we think of as great, and we've somehow lost it. But honor was a situation of a positive by negative, so to speak. It embodied a very Taoist principle here, because it was, I am a positive person, so I won't do that negative. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I won't lie. I will not
Correct.
stand up and lie and act surprised, and I never did either. But I had a lot of people. A lot of people are still watching the mainstream press, and you said in the last interview that they're on their way out. And are they on their way out because the power structure that it supported is on its way out as well? You're saying that the mainstream media is. I don't think they'll ever recover. I've been saying this for months. They're never going to recover from this.
Right.
What say you about the mainstream media? Because this is an important part of the fraud against America, and the fraud was spearheaded against Donald Trump. This is a very important part of the fraud. So what do you say about the mainstream press?
Okay, I have absolutely no firm proof other than internet research that I'm able to do and connect certain individuals to certain companies and so forth. But I'll tell you my reason for thinking that the press is on its way out. And it has sort of to do with all the reasons you're saying, but at the same time it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with technology. And I think the press is going to go because they won't be able to pump out entrainment technology anymore. The entrainment train is over. And by that I mean that CNN, all of these companies that use public media to reach people through broadcast as well as through your telephones, have been pumping out carrier signals that entrain your mind to their message, that make your mind susceptible, that soften you up. Brainwashing. They're buying it from a company that was run by 4 or 5 ex-CIA guys. That this thing was invented somewhere. They brought out a company. They set up a company because they got to make money on all of this. That company then sells this entrainment technology to all of these mainstream press. That company's going away because it was supported by CGI and all of the money through there and all of this other sort of stuff. And so when it goes away, that they won't have that support layer that brought to them a level of suspension of disbelief that allowed their message to get through. Therefore, a lot of their message will then run into a hard wall on realistic emotions, and the people will say, wait a second, I'm not going to buy that.
Final question, just a prediction. I don't know if you want to give it or not. Do you think Hillary Clinton and the group, based on your research, will likely be charged for these high crimes and misdemeanors?
Yeah, we have language to that effect. Yeah.
So you think that her and her underlings will be ultimately charged? Because that's one of the things that President Obama said that when Donald Trump went to the White House was like, well, you're not going to charge Hillary Clinton. You're going to do that, are you? I mean, but you're saying that your data sets are saying, oh no, she gets charged. Okay,
well, here's what we have. I don't, as a rule, I don't focus on personalities. Excuse me, hang on.
Then in general, as a group, everybody involved with the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clintons,
correct.
That whole.
Correct.
So let's just talk about the group. You think the group, the people that committed these crimes, you think the group is going to hit some major legal troubles in terms of crimes, charges, things like that. The group.
Correct, but it's part of a broader social change that occurs. And what occurs is, in our data sets, we've had this since 2003 or 4, including language like re-education camps. Now, imagine a situation where we had to re-educate people that had been brainwashed too long by technologies that we now discover we can't allow on our media, because this all comes out. So the confusion the confusion that we've got with our political structure is going to run smack into the degradation of the dollar, and as the dollar goes, its ability to bribe and cover up crimes is going to go away as well, and this will spread all the way out. So I actually expect, because I'm in on the woo-woo thing, remember, I actually expect that this confusion is going to spread far enough that we're going to have contact with the breakaway civilization. That these people that are in deep holes in the ground engineering spaceships and stuff are going to run out of, milk for their breakfast and eggs and stuff, and they're going to say, we better go on up and talk to those folks. And it's going to be something of a shock to the entire social order. And all of that is all mixed up in this period of time that we basically have to come to grips with reality, because we can't afford the illusion anymore, because the dollar is going away.
We can't afford, there's the title, my friend. And with that, the title, we can't afford the illusion anymore because the dollar is going away. The dollar was a grand illusion.
It's a mind control operation. If you look at it, it's a Ponzi scheme from the get-go, and it loses money every year as they print more of them. And they're telling you that this is something you should save. You should hold this. I mean, it's an illusion. It's a fantasy.
I hear these commercials, and I'll just leave with this: is wealth managers. Wealth. Paper managers. You're wealth managing. What?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so goofy.
Right. A wealth manager in my frame of world would be someone who, walked around and guarded your gold. That kind of thing.
With that, Cliff High, I will leave you, Cliff High, from halfpasthuman.com. When is your latest report, your next report coming out?
Probably the end of this month.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to get one out in the meantime. We've got too much stuff going on.
The end of November, and the current
Correct.
report is out there now. It's multiple pages long. The best way for me to do this is go to halfpasthuman.com. There'll be links on the usawatchdog.com site. Just scroll down to a little bit down the page. You'll see where you can buy the report, and you just sell one report per month. You just one time. Here's the report.
Yep,
Next month you come back. So basically there's no commitment. You just buy. There's only a commitment to buying the one report. Correct?
Correct.
And how much are the reports?
$15.
Listen, for what you put out, my friend, in my humble opinion, I don't make anything off your reports. You don't pay me, and I just want people to know that. That seems cheap to me.
That's what a lot of the people said about this last one, because it took the edge off their emotions ahead of things. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, Cliff High, halfpasthuman.com. Cliff High, thank you for joining us today on usawatchdog.com.
Thank you very much, Greg.